the world knows. But we can reflect on it and propose some some ways to make the internet, to assure the internet be human, a word of peace for us, not just a word of opportunity, new business. Then we have to think about control of people, control of behavior, and we have to think about in Brazil. Pierre is just giving my truth for everybody. Then everybody knows my English is not interesting. Yes, in Brazil we had a recent debate to create a law for internet, to create a charter of principles for internet. Then, because of that, all of our movement, social movement, had to become a specialist. We had to debate how to assure that internet became like it is today, with freedom to navigate, freedom, neutrality, and we had to debate this and formulate a charter. We did this through the internet, using the internet, debating with governments, debating with corporations, because we have a kind of multi-stakeholder committee in Brazil. And in the last year, we debate how to make this law, and after we had to put high pressure in the Congress and the government to make it real law. And it was a victory for Brazil. In this context, we have a world conference to debate the principles for the internet for the world. I will point some good things about this conference and some bad things about this conference. And because why I'm talking about this conference especially, because this year we have a lot of events debating the future of the internet. We will have the World Governance Forum. The forum of to govern the internet will be a meeting, a big meeting, and you have a world meeting in Korea. And why I speak of a meeting that we finished, because it was a political meeting, a kind of response of a situation that was new for us. It was the news from Edward Snowden that the agent of the United States was spying people, companies, leaders in the world, and including our President Dilma Rousseff was under sign of agent. And then my President Dilma asked for a global response to this situation in the United Nations meeting. She asked for this response, and several events after this moment, we arrived to this proposal, including the United States organization item that takes care of the rules, technical rules for the internet. We have an internet that seems democratic, but the great part of the information, the traffic that circulate in the world pass by the territory and the United States. And there is a organization that take care of some technical decisions. Then the governance passed by the United States. And this moment, this responsibility will change of hands, and you have to decide this. Then we have this conference to give a response. What internet we want for the world. Then with the there was a clear voice of the society to have in the internet the freedom of expression under protection. It was a clear voice to have in the internet neutrality under protection. And the privacy under protection. These were the principal principles we have defined, but since is not too good for us, because the final document of this conference let's open the discussion of neutrality. There is big corporations like Comcast has made agreement to not assure the same conditions for our people, but better ones for the clients. And we have a lot of situations that already make the neutrality not a right, but it's under commercial interest. Then we have also some words not have from some government, like Russia, like China, like Cuba. They disagree. Maybe they disagree with the way this conference takes, because it was a conference that minister was in the same line waiting for the microphone. Then usually it was a multi-stakeholder conference, and India has asked to not approve a document without go back to India to ask this government if they agree with the decision. Then there is a new future that internet brings to us, that to decide together how the governance could be made, and what principles we have to agree together, and how to go to achieve the consensus. And something was not good in this conference, because some words were not in the final document, but it was the result of an effort to create a decision making in consensus. And consensus is a word important for the peace movement, the future of the world. Then I put some words of this, because we have the next year, we have to, the world have to decide how the governance should be, because this situation of control of internet in the United States is expected to go to another hand. And we will have another forum, not another conference. This conference was unique. We will not do another. It gives a document of reference, but we have few time to decide how should be the future of the network. Then it's an introduction in my forum with my difficulty to speak, but I hope you understand what I would say about this moment, and maybe after we debate, we reflect, maybe we could agree in how we could to make this debate in another, put this agenda in another agendas of civil society in the world.
Maybe I just thank you for your presentation. I think you said some of the really important things about the situation. For instance, that internet brings already some very important impact on international relations by bringing a new culture, we call it a new culture, and there you had the very important concept of multi-stakeholder. What I was thinking while you were speaking was also that we have not been very pedagogical when organizing this, so I haven't thought much about that part, because when you speak about internet and internet governance, you are inevitably will stumble over some acronyms and things which are not very well known to the general public or even to people who are activists in the internet. One is, for instance, ICANN, which you mentioned, which is a body which it's a little bit like the library, because it gives a catalog of all the numbers and names in the internet, and it looks after, it arranges so that when you write a name to the internet, it will find the number, the right number. This is a very short explanation. You mentioned also Internet Governance Forum. You mentioned other things which are essential basics about internet governance. But I would say one word about that. That is, the internet itself has to apart solve this problem by way of Wikipedia, because Wikipedia as a new encyclopedia is new in the sense also that it is telling about new things. It is telling about what's happening now. It's not like print. So in Wikipedia you will find very good articles, I would say, about maybe I should, before I start my presentation, ask if you have some questions to me, or shall I continue? I need to talk.
I have worked with him, but I've not necessarily.
But you have worked in the institute, though.
No, it was secretary of the São Paulo. It was a kind of minister in the department of São Paulo. But he didn't like it to be governed. He didn't like it.
Yeah. Well, I continue then with my presentation, and I'm afraid I will make you a little bit disappointed if you expect from me to say something very new or interesting about how to use the internet. And because I will keep very strictly to this very, very general problematic of peace and the internet. I think it is quite a new subject. I will also say something about that, or I will quote people who have said something about that. And the first section is an introduction to a particular and crucial part of this problematic of peace and internet. A very, very general thing. And I start from a quotation by Karl Marx, who said like this, who wrote in his Critique of Political Economy, mankind thus inevitably sets itself only such tasks as it is able to solve, since closer examination will always show that the problem itself arises only when the material conditions for its solution are already present, or at least in the course of formation. I don't know if you got into this, but anyway, it's tempting to start the discussion from this idea of Marx about humanity's problems and their solutions. And I will fall for the temptation, and I will assume that peace is the name of the problem, and that the internet is what Marx calls a material condition for the solution. Now, peace is a word that is used in many ways and in many situations. To have peace might mean no more than to relax for a while, or I can reach peace in my mind. Or I might tell you that I have been through a divorce, but that my former wife and myself were still able to talk peacefully. In 1968, when I was a young man, the reds and whites of the Finnish Civil War were still not completely reconciled. Although 50 years had passed since 1918, the year of that particular war. But today, even the historians who have been counting the dead seem to have made peace which you did each other. Finally, we may think of world peace, which is basically the absence of major wars between the nation states. And this is what I intend to say something about. The subject to be discussed is more precisely whether the internet is a prerequisite for the building of world peace. Before I continue, it could be also, the answer is negative. The internet is not the right way. We should get rid of it. But I can go forward in the direction that indicated by Dr. Marx, that this is a problem which we are now going to solve in a sense. The prerequisite for the solution, namely the internet, has been recorded. And let's agree that world peace has, in a certain sense, become a necessity because of the nuclear weapon systems that are already in place and waiting to be used. Other existing future systems of massively destructive kind, such as biological, chemical, genetic, nanotechnological, and robotic weapons, do not even add to this necessity. They just make it more obvious. If the nation states actually fought a war with nuclear weapons, then they would exterminate us and many other forms of life on Earth. And this, as we know, has added an exterminist tendency to the existence of mankind. The word exterminist from the 1980s, where when we had a million movement for nuclear disarmament in Europe, and there was the historian E.P. Thompson, who is one of the historians actually, working class and social history, and he invented this concept of exterminism, wrote about it, and it is documented in books which I refer to here. And I think that although many people try to reject his thesis of this exterminist tendencies, I think he was right. And I think, in my opinion, his perspective is still valid, perhaps even more so now than before of the fall of the Soviet Union. Now, does the internet help us to cope with this tendency? This is the general question. Supposing that the internet is at least one of the required necessary conditions for the solution of the problem, is it also a sufficient condition? And there the answer is no. Certainly we should not think that the internet only by its own spread and development would cause some kind of outbreak of world peace. Between the nations, the peoples, and the states in the world. The internet, I come on to the second section, which is about internet governance. The internet started to spread and grow rapidly only some 20 to 30 years ago, which is a very short time span in the long history of wars and peace between the wars. And during this short period of time, the question of the so-called internet governance has become hotter and hotter. That is the background also to what Richard was talking about, and the revelations of Snowden have finally brought it out to the general public, and it's something really, really hot question. The Net Mundial in Sao Paulo last April, which is still about, was the most recent major international conference about internet governance. One of the speakers there was Milton Miller, a professor at the Syracuse University in New York and an international authority among internet scholars. In his short speech, which you can listen to from YouTube, because you have all the conference there, Miller made an interesting historical analogy, which I should like to quote here. He said, "We are in a strange middle ground. There are two basic principles of governance in play, coexisting side by side. We have governance in which states claim to represent entire nations, everybody in their territory with one position. And then we have governance based on open participation, which includes both state and non-state actors. Just as monarchy was fundamentally incompatible with democracy in the long run and was eventually replaced by it, so the open access network forms of governance are not necessarily compatible with national and intergovernmental systems. So I draw a parallel to the situation before the French Revolution in the 80s. And to the growth then of democracy and the degrowth of monarchy or the abolition of monarchy. Note that Miller sees the internet as such as a new form of governance. This immediately leads to the question of the compatibility of the new form of governance with the existing forms of governance. It's a little bit like the situation of double power, and I will come to this soon. You have two parallel governances. I don't know whether this was much discussed at NetMedial. I don't think so, but many people take notice of Miller's speech, and so this parallel is crucial. So, viewpoint. But Miller did not go into the problematic of world peace, like we here are intent on doing. If we apply Miller's analogy on our discussion of peace and war, then we need to focus on the significance of this question of internet governance for the relations between the nation states. First, on the international system. Perhaps the most significant characteristic of these relations is the perennial preparations for war, standing armies, fleets, and offensive and defensive installations, the industrial scale, and even more technologically sophisticated armaments, the permanent surveillance and spying systems, the huge investments in military research and development, and more. Our system of international relations is created and maintained by militant states. I have this wording, this phrase, terminology from H.G. Wells. Remember that man who wrote about the time machine, and that's actually the militant states. So the question here is, to what extent is the new governance based on open access and participation, to what extent is it compatible with the existing governance quotation marks provided by the militant states? Before I give my answer to that question, I need to mention one point where I do not perhaps completely agree with Newton Miller. Newton Miller has published a book with the significant title Networks and States, which has more criticism about the state. And there he notes that Cyberspace is indeed a place of its own, with its own native versions of riots, crime, street barricades, defacement, and even war. So he's referring to cyber war, for instance. This may be so, but I should like to warn against defining and viewing the internet and cyberspace as a particular place. At least this should not be our only way of seeing things. Because if we define the internet as a place, then we will easily throw the baby out with the bathwater. With the baby, I mean the piece. If the internet is defined as a place of its own, it will easily be understood as one more battlefield in addition to the existing places on land, on the high seas, in the air, and in space, where wars are being prepared and actually fought. However, it will not be as easy to understand the internet as a place with its own native version of things. What is the things? That will be a whole story of its own. But I don't go into it. No, that's of course a great problem. But as peace builders, I think we should take a different perspective and be particularly interested in the new contradiction. The contradiction between these two forms of governance, where we have to say that the whole concept of global governance, it is illusionary and it's even very dangerous. That if we think of such cases as the G7 or the G8 or the nuclear proliferation treaty, which are like they are not only insufficient, they are harmful, they have failed. They are very unsuccessful efforts to global governance between states which are at the same time preparing for war. And then we can, of course, speak about the UN, the United Nations, which is better, but it is also insufficient, and it has its deficiencies. To say that the internet and the present system or non-system of governance may not be compatible sounds almost like an understatement, in my ears. Without question, the present global political system of militant states will have to go. The question is when that will happen, how we can make it happen, and how to preserve the valuable parts of the old forms of governance, while checking and balancing them with the new forms of governance. Of course, I am not capable of answering these wide-ranging questions with any certainty or precision. Who can predict the future? I can only tell in which direction I think we should look for the answers. And then my first point is that multi-stakeholderism is only an emergency solution.
Stakeholderism.
Multi-stakeholder is a word. Multi-stakeholder is a word that you cannot miss if you read anything about internet governance, discuss it. It is in the document from Net Mundial, for instance, and actually the official name of Net Mundial was the Global Multi-Stakeholder Meeting on the Future of Internet Governance. And in a way, these abundant expressions of multi-stakeholderism are welcome and a very good thing, because they mean that those who have a stake in the future of the internet are many. Indeed, we all have a stake in the future of the internet. So, and not only the states, everybody. And so multi-stakeholder at this stage means that the states are actually taking the lead and organizing conferences, and they are a little bit more important stakeholders than the others. But then we have the big corporations, they are stakeholders, and then we have civil society, which it is need resources and some people, some power and those who speak there, and you have academics like you from Finland. But you have multi-stakeholder means that basically today it means that you have this rough division of three parts: states, corporations, civil society. So these are the stakeholders which. Sorry. Yeah, but wasn't it so at NetMundial that you had organized the conference so that each of these three representatives of these three areas were permitted to speak and on an equal basis, and that was also what created problems because the representatives of the states, for instance, they were not equal. They were, and they were not permitted also to say what they thought. They had to consult with their governments before they signed. But that's about multi-stakeholders. And the problem is not that multi-stakeholderism is so very bad. The problem is that it is not good enough. It is no more than an emergency solution in a situation with two basic principles of governance in play, coexisting side by side. This was the analogy Newton Müller made, and which I think is valid.
And
that we have two basic.
What I did not catch.
Yeah.
I think it's a very important thing.
Should I?
The last two sentences.
Multi-stakeholderism is an emergent solution which permits societies and states and civil society corporations to continue with the present internet and not to destroy it, let's say that, without destroying it. But there is another problematic, which is that we have two kinds of independent governance. The one which is based on the old system of political interstate relations, like the UN or the G7 or so, but then internet in itself represents something new. It is like democracy growing in the 18th century, which finally led to a revolution. So we are in a way, this would be one way also of expressing it, that we are in a revolutionary situation in a strong sense, so that the revolution means that the political system is revolutionized. And internet will, I think, inevitably, it has already started to revolutionize the international system. Because one very good example is WikiLeaks. That's why I have this today. WikiLeaks is the embryo of own intelligence service for the peoples of the world. It is without, it is outside of the international political system, and the present states cannot control WikiLeaks. They cannot control Snowden. They cannot control us who use internet. And this is a general situation which will take a long time. Okay. I hope I explain now. What do we come from this? We come to a new division of powers. And I think that we need to reconsider and revise our inherited concepts for the division of state powers, which are usually based on the Montesquieuian triad of legislative, executive, and judicial branches of the state. Montesquieu was and remains a great inspiration, but in this time of the internet, the WikiLeaks and Edward Snowden, yet one division of power, because the new form of governance, which has been described as being based on open participation, that's one definition. I mean, it's not only a new power, which deserves to be ranked as equal or parallel with the previous branches of the state. And just as these three previously well-known powers of the state, or branches of state power, the foundations of this new and fourth power lay not only in principles and ideas, but also in the material reality of human society as it has formed and developed. Obviously, the new power is rooted in the digital information technology. It stands and falls with computers, software, and computer-based communication between people. Also obvious, and more obvious than ever after the revelations of Snowden, is that the previous state powers are losing bits and parts of their power to the new power. They cannot control it. It transcends their boundaries and jurisdictions. One defining feature of the new power is its global and universal dimension. A second defining feature is, I hope so. This is the starting point is that it is the second feature is non-violence, at least when compared with the military and the violent nature of the nation states. The militant nation states, however great and mighty they may be, lack these features. They are not, by definition, the powers of the nation states cannot be global or universal. This is precisely why nation states are military and violent states. States which have constantly waged wars against each other throughout history, and which will most probably continue to do so if we do not put an end to it. I am approaching the end of this perhaps quite heavy presentation. And I'm coming now to questions about the nature of this new power, which I hope I can understand my thoughts. I said this power must be rooted in the new information technology. But where is that foundation itself rooted? One answer could be in our memory. At least this answer seems to give a clue to what our information technology and the internet really are. They are extensions and externalizations of our memory. However, extensions of our memory are not a new phenomenon. In spite of the fact that many millions of people living today cannot yet read nor write, even on mobile phones, literacy has prevailed since long. We live in literacy, in cultural literacy. Writing as such is an earlier information technology that extends our memory into the external world. And undoubtedly, the digital information technology and the internet are, in turn, extensions of literacy. Therefore, I suggest that we go and look for the foundations of the new power in the library. Admittedly, I use the word library in a very generic way to describe our external memory. And I am by no means the first to do so. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, for instance, called the library the only trustworthy memory of mankind. Neither am I the first to speak of the internet as a new and somewhat transformed kind of library. On the contrary, this metaphor of the library has been there from the start of the computer. I just hope that I am not one of the last to think so. Because for me, at least, the library embodies many of those values that we do want to preserve, even if we manage to abolish the nuclear weapons and major wars between nations. The library has a universality. It is like the internet, where the nations only have national. The library is not an economic corporation like Google or Microsoft or Samsung or Comcast. The library is not capitalist, it is a public service. Should we not like the library to become a power? The library power. And so this has become my conclusion of how to see the future of internet and governance. That internet as an extension and continuation of the library, and something which transforms also the library itself, will become like a global power of a very special kind, which is not based on violence, but rather it permits this open participation with like business. I was talking about, and then of course it will be very interesting to think about the role of the librarians. The libraries need librarians. And what will be the role of the librarians then in the internet? Of this I could speak, I could speak volumes, but I will not. I have not made that point. I have some additional remarks which I'll make short. First, the infrastructure of the movement. The peace movement should also ask questions concerning the ownership and administration of the physical infrastructure of the internet. This is very rarely mentioned. I don't know if there will be these questions. Only computer pros are really thinking more about it, so telecom pros. Against the impending dystopian scenario of a handful of transnational telecom giants, such as those I already mentioned, Google, Comcast, owning and controlling the fiber optical cables. The fiber optical cables are the key component for the physical infrastructure of the internet. We need to formulate a vision of an infrastructure in the hands of the people. Against the widespread misunderstanding that we are here speaking about something extremely complicated matters which the common man and woman could not possibly understand or handle. We need to show that building and maintaining the infrastructure of the internet is no more difficult than drawing water pipes and forming a local water cooperative. If you don't believe me, come to visit me where I live in the countryside, 70 kilometers to the east from Helsinki, where in some villages the peasants and people who live there have actually built their own internet infrastructure with their tractors and voluntary work. They have built their own fiber optic networks in order to have good internet connections. They had as their inspirator one guy who was a professor of telecommunication at the Technical High School and who inherited house of his father, a peasant, but he continued as a peasant. So he was there, the leader of the project. But in fact, to build and run a fiber optical network is something which can be done by you and me if we work. It's of course a physical work, of course, but to dig them down or to raise them in the air. But it is not not more difficult than other municipal technology. And actually, that is also how the telecom network was built. The early telephone companies were cooperatives in local places. Built. Anyway, there we are very late because the situation now is that the infrastructure of the internet is already in the hands of the transnational corporations and the big players. But I think it can still change the situation. And it means we must assert our view that the telecom industry ought to be the natural monopoly of the municipality, city, commune, village, and its inhabitants. The concept of natural monopoly, I think, is a new economic concept. Also, you can see in Wikipedia read about national monopolies. National monopoly is something which often is a public service. And for instance, it is only in the last decades that everything has become privatized. So before that, we had actually local telephone companies or local water companies or local anything like that. And we should also have the infrastructure of the internet. And I believe it is a very important condition for making the democratic institution that is not controlled. So, how long have I spoken?
Both of them.
An hour and a half.
Yeah, both of them.
Okay, then I just mentioned the other. I don't say. I want to say something about cyber war, cyber peace, and the PeaceNet. But this last one, I must say, in the catalog of this event, the word internet occurs in the description of precisely one out of 190 or so workshops that are listed, and that is this one. The same goes for networking. Only the word networking, only the participants in the workshop for real military spending in new intelligence such activity. Isn't that a bit depressing? Anyway, I was cheered up a little when I read that there is an own Sarajevo peace event app for my mobile phone. Because then I thought that the peace movement is keeping up with technological developments. And I felt a little bit better. Because the internet cannot and will not go away. Therefore, we have to keep on networking for peace. Okay, thank you.
La base virale VPS a été mise à jour.
Oh, yes,
So maybe people can speak somehow, somewhere. Maybe people can speak.
Yes, yes. I have to continue to open the session for everybody. But we have to focus for the next question. Internet is not for all the digital world. there are it is kind of social network that protocols, I think, and we have a lot of few communities want to have internet without internet. And when you bring this discussion of the internet beyond of multi-stakeholder, and you put on the table how great is the debate we have to do, and where we have to do this debate, how can we open this debate in our agenda and the agenda of social movement, how we can face the internet issue and all the process to define who can help us to prepare this system, how LIDAR could help us to define the system, how the social movement could help. I'd like to open to everyone who could help us to have some propositions for the next time we have this debate in the
I will say some better, but I have something to say. No, but just please go and
Begin.
okay. No, I would just say something simple, that I speak from the World Social Forum process point of view, which is trying to be in the mind of people a common good idea that people can organize events such as this one everywhere in the world at big scale or thematic focus or general scale. In this year, there is about 40 events which are planned and considered as part of the World Social Forum calendar. So my contribution is very simple. Start by integrating the ways of remote participation when you organize such events, because this will be a very effective and simple way for people to get acquainted with how internet can help them to do what they want to do, that is spread ideas, that is allow people that have not bought a plane ticket to discuss and maybe to replicate discussion in the local environment. So it's more like a dialogical point of view, using internet as a channel, complementary and expanding such kind of events. And if there was such a program in the head of organizers of event, then they would go and look for volunteers for internet tech pros that would volunteer their time to build up teams and build tools and set device organizing to help this be done. And I just think this is a good starting point. And of course, larger perspectives are welcome, but this is something which is at hand. So that's what I wanted to say.
First, I apologize for delays. The one was very interesting in all this basic and there is the fuse, and when it's too complicated, you call the experts. But so you need to work on this education. Self-education in this basic steps. What is internet? Is internet Facebook? Where this big event in Tunisia where was there. They think that for watching my website, they need a face-to-face. When they say, I sent you a message, they mean, I sent you a Facebook message. And because we are at a point where you can buy an internet, the companies sell you an internet access that you have on your phone and your computer, whatever, which is only to go on Facebook at a very cheap price. They cannot explain it in a clear way. So we are always saying the basic education, and then next to it, I think I really strongly last. They control it. Technology education to the people, the website, the email, the encryption of the email in a very simple way, and then the basic understanding of how the internet works, what are the cables, what are the servers, what are the loads, and then the good examples to start. This, in my view, is the very basic steps. Like in Tunis, we try to have a workshop with an expert explaining to all these people how you encrypt an email. All these people basically don't even, half of them didn't know that the email outside of Facebook exists. because I really strongly with the point that after all these things with WikiLeaks and with Snowden, we must take into account that this has happened, and now we need to change our views and expand our demands, and not pretend that we can have some multi-stakeholderism to continue like it was before. That is such a complicated argument. Really, such a complicated argument. We really should spend much more energy, and I'm telling you, but I'm not so good at doing it, on the pedagogy, on building the basic steps. I spend so many hours one-on-one with different people to explain the basic thing. Maybe it's what we should all be doing, I don't know, but we have to take into account that, you know, to have a very old-style comparison, before having the Marxist revolution, you do political education of the workers in the factory. It's a bit brutal comparison, but it's something like that. We need to have some technological, the basics of the needed to understand, which we need to give them to the people, and then are perfectly able to carry out the political battle if they are not blocked outside of this basic understanding. But you know, that's my opinion, my small contribution to that. I mean, I'm very happy that such a kind of discussion can exist here, and I hope we can go forward not just by connecting in other fronts, but bringing maybe some material, some understanding, some maps, some stuff that people can understand. But internet is not like a fiction outside. It's, as you said, it's very concrete infrastructure in concrete territories that exist, and very concrete questions are related to it.
He was first.
I have a question on this term of governance. You said it's the beside legislative, executive, and judicative. There is another power. How did you call it?
Well, I call it
open participation.
Yeah, and I actually call it library power, but there has been also informational power.
Yeah. In the world we have, let's say, before 30 years before, we had this fourth power, the mass media,
right?
The press, and so open participation. Do you think mass media are part of this?
Yes.
Oh yeah. And
I should not make the most general thing I can say about this is that yes, the fourth estate, as this is called in English actually, and that we don't have states anymore. We speak about powers, especially in America. Their constitution is very clearly stated this. It's not this clear idea. But the fourth estate, the mass media, they are also in the basic laws, but they are freedoms. They are formulated like something that you are free to speak, to publish a journal, and on the condition that you use that freedom, then it will be powerful. But if nobody uses it, nothing will happen. Actually, Montesquieu still didn't think so much about this because they didn't have freedom of the press. But then in England, liberalism comes to this. But what I am actually proposing is that we will need also like a basic law, the principles which are stated. And that is the reason why we will need to have a revolution. Because this law is not compatible with the present international systems where we have sovereign states. And the sovereign states say that our laws are our laws, we are sovereign, nobody should mix with our laws. Now, we need now to have some kind of global system, which is where the internet is and the library, in my view, is recognized as fort power. And that will be very hard in a way, but on the other hand, it is coming. And if you look at the library, you will have the rudimentary thing of this. You will have the ethic of the librarians. They have the librarians, it's a group which has their own ethics. And that is the beginning of it. And you have also other, for instance, Lisa tells me that the group, they try to formulate their principles. And actually, the free press has good principles. We have good principles. But the free press is not so free as we know, because it is under the national system.
And financial.
And
Financial.
yeah, fine. Yeah. And internet has a new structure. It governs itself. What is this? Sorry.
Yeah. My question goes even to another level. You speak of governance, and you compared the situation with the situation before the French Revolution. That was then democracy coming up. And now I think internet is not a form of governance, or libraries is not a form of governance. That what is coming up is anarchy, not a form of governance. And I think the internet, there is no governance in what you think of the internet.
Then I have to ask you. Is this a good thing or bad?
Yeah, I think it's good.
Ah,
Yeah. And I think it's good, but we have to learn that it is not a form of governance. And my question is, I think in the world we live, it is necessary even to have a form of governance.
you ask.
Yeah, isn't it necessary? Not only anarchist tendencies, but also to govern. For instance, the power of the big economic society would be even worse if we hadn't some laws which determine that, and some
Yes.
Yes. Did you
I understand. Yes. Very absolutely. What kind of question they come to?
Well, two remarks. One is about the basic steps that everyone could take. It is quite obvious that most of us are using internet, a lot of the infrastructure of the internet by no cost. You pay something to the provider and that's it. And then we claim these providers that they don't take care of our interest, of our privacy, and so on. We didn't realize that we always have to pay a price. You know, if you have an email address at no cost, then you pay with your data, and you are talking in an email about new dishes you want to buy, and afterwards you have all this advertising on the site about dishes and glasses and stuff. Okay, and this is quite obvious. If you go ahead and you go to I did that unfortunately only 5 months ago. So I went to a company that has very good internet email system with high privacy, with encryption on the server and stuff like this, and it costs euro per month, so it's very cheap. And there are these guys that know how to do that, so it's easy for the user. And the only thing is that these guys must make their living on something. If they do a job that is more or less a full job, then you must be paid. So we must be prepared to pay something. Maybe only in a way that it's not as comfortable to use email encryption as it is without encryption. You have to key in a password. That's all. But this is one thing that we always must ask ourselves: isn't there an alternative that is more safe, that is more to my needs, and I have to pay a little bit? And then, second remark about the compatibility of open access and nations. I think what you did not take under account is the contrary between big companies and nations, or even the incompatibility of the needs of the companies that want to sell us things like you know, coffee machines and sex dolls and whatever, and the others that want to sell us intellectual property. The one want the open access for everyone, of course. They want their advertising all over the world, and the others want that only one specific person can see this, for instance, this movie. If they could, they would try to sell us screens where only one person can see it. So I think there are more players on the ground than just nations and these open access people. There are these global companies, and I guess if you dive deeper into the structure of the internet, you will see that well, these big players now they make the rules at this time. We have to deal with that. We have to deal with the rules that the big companies are defining.
Maybe I would add something. And I really enjoyed your paper and your presentation. But when we speak about the library, I think that library as a social infrastructure should and maybe could cover the things that I don't know.
Flora.
You mentioned in terms of basic technological literacy. So we already have places where we can do that, but I believe we don't use them anymore in a way to promote and literacy in that way. And I work with students who are ready to become librarians, and it's very hard to move all the stereotypes and prejudices about the librarianship in general. But I see it as a social and political tool to engage in problems that you actually talk about: information ethics, information policy, etc. On the other hand, I think about modes of governing that we should maybe speak more about the ideology of communism, of communist movement, as I see it very compatible to the librarianship. So, in terms of digital commons, for example, and so I think that third part of government to also pertains to the internet itself. And on the another thing that was coming to my mind when I was listening to you is about the famous critic of internet, Evgeny Morozov, who says that there are much more digital captives than digital renegades. And I believe that's also the issue that we should think about it. And finally, yeah, that's what we do for now.
Okay.
I agree with all of us. I missed something what I want to say earlier. At some point, yeah, we need to have some little positive demands which are part of this education for people, and maybe it should be a rights-based demand. Internet as a common, I fully agree, maybe it's already too complicated. But if we, I mean, Facebook as a common, if they really want to use Facebook with these people, why not? I mean, it's a free world, but why does it mean that Facebook is a private property of one company following the rules of one country? It should be like nationalizing it, but at a global level. I mean, we should think in terms of having global public services. I'm not sure if I'm very clear on this, but I'm not talking about the Facebook company itself, but if some services that work on the internet are considered now fundamental, just because billions and billions of people use it, I think it's the definition of it's fundamental. We have no judgment capacity. And maybe it should be a demand that we have the right to have this, so that there is the internet connection that exists to us, and there is a law that we can use it, and we have the right that this is managed in a proper way, in an horizontal, democratic way, not a way where governments are spying on us or companies are stealing our data to then force it consumerism. This kind of little, I think, rights-based demand, the right to a secure email for every human being, to a secure email. And then, yeah, what you said is very important. Also, in part of this education is that nothing is for free. If you don't pay, you're being cheated somewhere.
I was going to say that's something that's kind of just asking us a bit of basic right to not be treated as an object, so not to be treated as just consumer. That's what I think just described there. And it seems to be that people think of each other, not necessarily in this group, as a whole, as a way of deriving profit. So I think what's that has also been changed. That way, then more of it, a lot more around the world. People will start to think to change the way people see things and see the world, and see each other. We're not meeting themselves, so big multinational shouldn't be treating us as a way to derive profit. And I don't think the global view is of that. Not people sat here, because I think we're all sort of the same, but the idea that we work, you get money, and somewhere gets profit out of it, and that's how people are seen. But that way, it wasn't always like that. It was always in that way. So yeah, so that's right to being treated as an individual human, and you have to say, yeah, not being spied on. Yeah, quite basic.
Sorry, I couldn't come earlier, and I missed this conversation, and I really regret it. But I represent an organization, UNESCO. UNESCO has as its mandate United Nations Education, Science, Culture, and Communication. And so there is a venue, a place maybe to work with others who are both NGOs and other kinds of representatives on these kind of issues using the human rights approach to have also not only the discussions but maybe advance in terms of having it also be discussed with the member countries So it's a long process to go from one step to the other. I know a few of the people. I don't attend the meeting on information technology on a regular basis. But there's so many things going on in so many different directions. But I did attend, now in February, a seminar that is in use of mobile technology. And there were over 400 people who were there from all over the world. And they are also both NGOs, education systems, librarians, publishers of books, using any kind of approach, but just to receive all this junk because you don't have enough knowledge and capacity to be able to know how to filter out, or that you've gone on at one time a website looking for something and now you are flooded with junk, and that all of your emails are being looked at. It's interfacing to the right problem that is fundamental. And the librarians that I know that have been defending, it's the librarians in the United States who came out publicly to defend the right to freedom when the U.S. government was using phishing techniques, and they were told that they couldn't talk to anybody about the questioning that they were having. And it was actually some librarian who told not to go to a lawyer, not to go to anyone else, not to talk to anyone in their family. And that's in the United States. And it was librarians who took it, had the courage to come out publicly and denounce it. So we need to have more citizen type of responsibility, but also maybe to have draft the ethical ideas of what it means to be a human being, that many people are now functioning in ways that they shouldn't be functioning, because ethics, what is that? You know, I've had a number of people who say, I'm not doing anything wrong. What about the ethical ramifications of what you're doing? But I'm just a tech person. So you know, this is and I said, unfortunately, maybe we've already discussed these kinds of issues in depth, but I would just enter that as one kind of approach to look at.
Yes. I very much appreciate all your comments, for I think they were all very right. But as we are now in a place where we are like the peace movement, we must not forget that perspective. So human rights will always come up, but we must somehow mix this discussion with the peace movement, and I think nuclear disarmament demand must always be present. And that would be a question also for instance, librarians. It is very natural question for librarians. Not books, not bombs. But we tend to forget that this is a question that can unite us to demand for nuclear disarmament. That's why in my presentation I wanted to focus on this one aspect. So the contradiction between internet and the nuclear arm. And they belong to the same age, to the same problematic. The internet must mean that we get rid of the situation, the shadow over our systems.
how much I have a very conflict with the holiday together.
But also, I think, I basically think that Pierre's suggestion that we have many fora, but we need to have more fora about internet, like Krista already said. This kind of discussion must be also where we collect this.
Yeah, there is a space in the OpenFSM called Peace and World Social Forum. So if you want, we can make a mailing list with the people here and continue the discussion in that space and see if people want to settle in more specific internet and peace or something, create something and continue the discussion or
Yeah, I promised to come there at 2.
No, but this is the cafe. No, I'm just saying to answer precisely the question of the lady say, how can we follow on? I just say we can make a mailing list with the people participating and give maybe some images, and also the people can make more inputs, and this can continue. And this is located in a space called Peace and World Social Forum. But it can be made in another specific place if you want.
If you propose that, I agree. I will subscribe.
No, you have the mails, you are the organizers, so if you say, okay, I just asking, it's an answer, a practical answer to the question.
Okay, we put that up. Shall
Okay.
we do that?
Yeah, you are proposing that when we debate the internet, we use the internet to enlarge our
enlarge and follow up on with the as a very simple mailing list tool. It's a very simple tool.
Okay.
Not only internet, but also food.
Yes, yes. Then you told about four even.
Yes.
Four.
Yes, these are the people. These are the events that are in the World Social Forum process. So this event is
this debate on the internet rights, internet future, and in internet in this right and internet, how could you work in that?
If we have the mailing list, I think first, because I know because I've seen bits here and there, and all of you have seen many, we could try first to put together everything that exists. But we know exists, so that we inform the others that these things exist. And then, from this basis, we could maybe try together to write some sort of the architecture of what would be this basic package. It should be maybe one map of the world with what information on it. It would be one page explanation about encryption. I don't know what it could be. And then we see when we agree on the content and all the resources we have found here and there, what of the things we need already exist, or what we need to create. And of course, also on this issue, again, we should co-opt people we know who are good in this or have already done things, because many things already exist in education. I'm not saying it does not exist. It's just we should have it a bit more systematized with the political ideas we have behind. Concentrate maybe more on explaining this issue rather than that issue.
In the first time we have worked in basic education for internet, we have educated can to use the internet, can to use the free software, but we have to include in this process to think about what is the impact, the present, physical presence of the internet, and I think it's interesting proposal to elaborate.
I have a very simple question. Say, how do you want the editing space and the mailing list to be named? Is it like Internet and Peace, or what? Is that okay? I mean, okay.
There is there was another kind of debate here. I have one question for the librarian. You have to solve something, to say something. In the last two years, 90% of all the information collected in the world, all the information was collected in just 2 years for the big data, for the big data. They have all information in great velocity. Then the libraries have to think about information in the sense of the transformation. Then, like a proposal, I think we should do debate that how all that structure of knowledge, of indexation of information should come with us to debate the new situation where we have now the Internet of Things connecting people and machine. Then we have to debate it. I think this debate should be made in this process in different ways.
And with the librarians, because they are thinking.
Okay. Okay, then, but we have to debate together. Maybe it's a proposal. You ask about if we need law, if we need charter for the internet, if we need principles. Yes, because someone managing this information. I am here, the internet open windows that I don't ask you to be open to offer me new tips. They have information that I was looking for. Then they didn't have the information that I am here. They are late, and they offer to me everything I should every day. They have the information. They work on it. Then I think we need some. It's anarchy, but we need some principles to protect this kind of anarchism and autonomy of the network. Then we have to be attentive, pay attention in this process since the next moves out into the next International Governance Forum and into September when we debate the future of ICANN, the future of IANA, and the technician question. We have to follow this, to share information about this. And yes, you told the special thing. We have to pay for the internet. In the neutrality, if you pay more, you will have more. If you pay less, you have less. Then we have to find it's in time to defend neutrality for the internet. They have to respect. And you propose the library as a social structure to help us in this. Please, I think we can do that in this process. The whole of the library for this to make connection with other organizations, other issues, other movements. If I don't know, if I understand what you yes, then I think we have to do that because how Prohan told, internet is not the goal. It's between us, connecting us. If the governance of the internet is about us, we are talking, not about something that we, yes, it's miracle to make things work. It depends we to be connected with the things. So I think we have a lot of proposals from our. If you have something more, please.
Meeting this.
Well, my English not working.
But maybe we should stop here because it's now 12:16. I think our time is running out. Thank you very much for coming. I will come to the cafe and you will be there.
When would you come?
Then we will set up this space and the list.
Okay.
It will be done this afternoon and then the first visit will go out.
And where is this cafeteria?
I have one more question. If I come back to the sit down, and if I go back to the media part, without the table, they are asking. We are writing a charter also for free media movement. It is a large movement of small media community, software developers, and social network activists, and some movement to regulate media, like in Latin America we have in Argentina, we have in Ecuador, we have some laws to make the mainstream media to change, to put hands on the room. Then we are debating what are our common struggles. And I propose this debate to be part of the free media report, and I would like to speak in our report.
Yes, thank you.
Please, cafeteria.
It's in the Tito Cafe. In Tito Cafe. So I will go there and will stay up till 3 o'clock or 3. So if come before 3, because then at 4 we have an activity.
Thank you.
Thank you.